So Alicia Keys posted some pics with this beautiful hairstyle, and I'm no stranger to recreating her looks, so I had to try this, guys. I saw her post this on Instagram a few days ago and my wheels immediately started turning to make this into a video. I think it's a stunning look on her and it gives me Black Girl Sailor Moon vibes, which was always one of my favorite animations growing up. So if you're interested, keep watching. This is going to be a very detailed walkthrough and I hope you feel confident enough to try this yourself. So when I'm styling with rubber bands, I prefer to do it on freshly washed hair because that just helps it look less frizzy and the moisture helps prevent breakage. I have the back sectioned off into 2 cornrows, and in the front I just start with the middle part. To ease myself into the style, I go to the smallest part, which is the sides, and I do my first part to establish what size all of the sections will be. You'll find that I'm doing a lot of eyeballing to make sure the sizing makes sense, because your parting is basically your whole style. So I add some braiding gel and a rubber band to that little section I just parted off. You don't want to make this too tight because you'll be adding this section to other sections for the final look later. Next, I start at the top of my head because that's the part that will be most visible. So I want to make sure that this part looks congruent with that first little section I did. I have to straighten the part off camera, but you get the idea. You just want to make sure it matches the thickness of your first section. I'm going to be parting off my whole head to just lay out how my rubber banded sections will sit. For now I'm just putting a bantu knot in this middle part so I can come back to it later. Then I do another long part to create my last 2 sections, measuring the whole time to make sure the width makes sense. You want to be particular about this because it's going to be hard to make alterations once you start adding the rubber bands. Trust me. And you can see my sections coming together here. So when I'm satisfied with everything, I put each section in a bantu knot and I move back to the top section to get started with my rubber bands. I part off my first section in this row, still keeping in mind the size of the very first part that I did in my ear. And then I go in and part off the rest of the section. Again, I make sure all of my parts are laid out how I want before adding any rubber bands to avoid having to redo anything. Rubber bands can pull your hair out, so you want to keep manipulation to a minimum. I then pin the other sections away and finally add my first rubber band on this row. Now you may think that you're just supposed to go to the next section in this row, and you could do that if you want the straight back look, but it wouldn't create the crisscross kind of checkerboard look that Alicia has. So to achieve that, I'm moving on to my second row to section that off. I part in what we call a bricklaying pattern in the natural hair world because I just think that's the most flattering to the eye. And once again, I part off that whole second row before adding a rubber band. This style is all about proper planning so that you don't get frustrated when the look doesn't come out quite how you envisioned. So when I get the sizing right for these sections, I clip them away and do the same as the first row by adding my first rubber band. And here you can see me plotting on how I want that to cross over. Now before I do that, I'm moving on to my third row. The reason I do this first is to again just make sure I have my full layout before I start adding too many rubber bands. You will see that I have rubber banded the first section of each row before I start doing my crisscrosses. This makes it super easy for the style to come together as those first sections set the foundation. You don't have to second guess the first section. And because I haven't added a bunch of rubber bands at this point, I'm free to tweak it if something doesn't look right. And now we're ready for the fun part. You can see me planning how I want the crisscrosses to lay. And the easiest part is just twisting my rubber banded section into the loose section and adding a rubber band to conjoin them. I do my first 4 sections in the front. And then I move to the third row and add that to the middle section in the second row. This is how you get like a basket weave sort of pattern. And this is also why having all your sections already parted off makes this 1,000 times easier. You can see so much of the look already coming together. For that middle section, I decided to split it to keep the basket weave pattern going. You see how that planning worked out? So before I do the middle, I want to create a double helix pattern at the top. And I do this by just adding that middle top section to the last section in the second row. This is a mouthful, but it proves that some of the most simple styles take a little strategy to pull off professionally. I'm a licensed natural hairstylist, so I'm all about making the process clear. So now that my helix is done, I can now move to splitting the section in the middle, and that will cover my last 2 checkers on the board. I just split that section in half and twist my half section to conjoin it with the respective back section, and finally add the rubber band. I take the other half in the middle and I plan to conjoin that with the last 3rd row section, but I don't want to leave my very first section hanging. So I take that and join it to my last checker box as well. And then finally conjoin that split middle section as the final step on this side. Now every single section is connected to another one. My camera battery died and I just went ahead and did the other side off camera. You can see this came together so neatly. I only wish I didn't do the front section so tight on my first half because you can definitely see them pulling. But I couldn't feel it at all and didn't notice until I watched the footage back because I'm not tender-headed in the slightest. But that's how my front is looking for now. And I just put it into 2 loose buns in the front for now while I work on the back. In the back, I saw that Alicia Keys had 2 long feed-in cornrows. So that's what I did. I used 2 standing mirrors to help me see in the back, and I didn't get the best footage here, so I added some of my footage from my shorts video to show you how that first braid came out. And then I move on to creating my space buns in the front to finalize the look. I had these braids laying around already from a previous style. I take my finger through the top loop of the jumbo braid and hook that onto my Bantu knot bun. This could honestly be a style if you want, but I wanted to stick to Alicia's look, so I wrapped the braid into a bun. I didn't add many pins because I wasn't going anywhere after this, so this was just for production. But you can add as many pins as you see fit to secure the buns onto your hair. You might need to play with it until you get the look that you want, and I do this on both sides, and that's the final look. I was honestly kind of shocked that it came out so nicely on my first try, and I'm super thankful to Miss Keys hairstylist for the inspiration because I've been in a bit of a creative slump lately. What do you guys think? Did I nail it? And would you ever try this? Let me know in the comments. Like this video and subscribe for more hair ideas. Later, babes.